that's the hardest bit about editing podcasts, to be honest, is
Yeah.
making them end somewhere natural. Because we often just tail off and we're like, oh yeah, that's cool, all right. Let's talk about another
That's
thing.
how we almost always end.
Yeah. Oh, wow, that's really cool. That's all we ever say.
Yeah. I'll try and get some sound bites in for you.
All right, if you could, that would be really handy. So since recording the previous episode 12, Cleaner Ras Socrates, I have discovered that my girlfriend's sister and her husband did not actually name their baby Thea.
Oh, no.
I know.
Oh.
Her name's Thea,
Oh.
as in Theodora,
Okay.
which I'm told is a much more common name than Thea.
Yeah, now you mention it, maybe it is, but they're basically the same, aren't they? You can say it however you want to.
That's kind of what I thought. I've told Bella that I'm going to keep on calling it Thea, her. I'm going to keep on calling her Thea. I think it's a shame because Thea's such a cool name. Goddess of the light of the bright blue sky. I think that's a great thing to be named after. And, obviously the primordial Earth collision. However, the good news is that this means the position for the first official generic drift baby is still open.
Yes. Email in, hello@genericdrift.com.
Get your applications in now. I mean, it does feel a little bit cruel to me to strip that title from a human that's so undeveloped it's not even able to hold its own head up.
Did you mention that to them?
No, I didn't.
You should have made a little certificate and then been like, but we're going to have to take this back.
I should have, yeah.
You've just lost your baby's first certificate.
Yeah.
Apart from the birth certificate.
That says Thea. Oh, God, okay. How have you been? What have you been up to since we last spoke?
I did come up with an idea for a new sci-fi novel.
Oh, go on. You like to give all of your ideas away.
Because I'll never do them.
Okay.
So, listeners may not know that I think all sci-fi novels are terrible.
No, you don't.
I do.
Do you?
By and large, yeah.
Have you read Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep?
No.
That's very, very good.
Okay.
That's what Blade Runner's based on. You've read Jurassic Park. You like that?
Yeah.
There we go. That's the second one I've named.
I like Brave New World, I guess, but I'm just looking at my books now. I like City of Death, the Doctor Who novelisation. Yeah, okay. So I just think that sci-fi books as a genre are largely poorly written.
Yes, a lot of them are. It's the same with fantasy, right?
Oh God, it's definitely true with fantasy.
No, you like a bit of fantasy as well.
No, I don't.
Yes, you do. Merlin, the TV series.
I wouldn't read the novelizations.
I reckon you would like some fantasy. I just can't think of any at the moment. All right, never mind. Sorry, I'll let you get back to your point.
Okay, yeah, so it's my sci-fi book, my new sci-fi book. It's set in a parallel timeline where humans ancestrally had to hibernate. And so, obviously now that we live in houses and stuff, it wouldn't be as much of a big deal that, we just wouldn't hibernate, basically.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But my idea is that because the poor people, basically, have always been asleep for half of the year, it would completely change the trajectory of, cultural and industrial revolutions and things throughout the course of human history. And there'd be this huge divide between those who could escape hibernation and those who couldn't. And every year just before the fall of winter, there'd be this massive rush to get resources by looting and stuff. What do you think?
I think it sounds like a good premise.
So now anyone can write it if they want to.
Well, you should post it into Reddit on writing prompts, because people often do just take that and write a little piece on it.
Or the listeners can just, once they've finished Trimder.
All right, once you finish Trimder, had a baby, named it after something to do with our podcast, and then you can get to work on Adam's sci-fi novel. Split the profits 50-50.
So what's your favourite berry?
Oh, is this a trick question? Are you going to be like, that's not a berry?
Well, no, I don't think so.
Banana. I think a banana's a berry. Well, I'm going to go with the raspberry.
The raspberry, yeah, that's That's one of what I would call the big four.
The strawberry, the raspberry, the blackberry, the cranberry.
Oh, I would have gone blueberry.
Oh yeah, okay.
They're the ones that if you go into Tesco or even a Sainsbury's local or something, you might get those for if you're lucky. A cranberry at a stretch.
A cranberry you will struggle with, but you will get cranberry juice.
Yeah.
Yeah. But the actual berries...
You'll rarely find those in a punnet.
That is just a funny word. But go on. Sorry.
Okay, so at the end of the last episode, we really spiraled out of control talking about milking pigs, if you remember.
Yeah, I do remember.
They're, and we talked about that there are species that are suitable for, like, domestication for certain uses and things that aren't. Pigs have got their tiny little nipples, which you can milk.
Can you? Have you looked this up?
I did look it up. It's very hard, and so we don't do it. And they also don't like it.
Okay, I guess to caveat what I said last week, can you caveat something after you've said it? Or do you caveat before?
I think you can do either.
All right.
Correct.
All right, well, I'm going to make an amendment then. Essentially, when I said you can't milk a pig, I didn't mean you can't extract milk from a pig. I meant it's impossible to build a dairy industry around pigs.
Well, we're not really trying hard enough, but yeah, you are probably right.
Yeah, it's impractical.
Mm-hmm.
Not impossible, but incredibly impractical.
You've really set me up brilliantly for my news story. I can't believe how well you've fallen into my trap, to be honest.
Okay, good.
It's not about milking pigs, unfortunately. It's related, sort of, in a tangential way, but in the plant world. So, genomic editing is fiercely debated, like the cons, usually, whether the cons are actually cons or not,
Mm-hmm.
Scientists hope that they're going to be able to edit crops, like, rice or wheat or whatever.
Yeah.
So that they have a higher yield or that they can cope better under the coming climatic conditions.
Yeah, better nutrition for the third world, for example.
Exactly, yeah, like golden rice, so that we can feed the world basically in the future.
Mm-hmm.
And most of the sort of gene editing projects that have taken place have been in big agricultural crops, so things like rice and wheat, etc. And less research has gone into what we call orphan crops. So these are crops that can be like quite important within one region. They could be used in like subsistence farming or whatever, but they're not commonly traded. I don't know why we call them orphan crops, by the way. Like, I think it's to differentiate between the fact that they haven't been like sculpted through human selection.
Right.
So they're just crops that like we don't commonly use, basically. So like even if they might be used by people on a small scale or just grown to eat in like one part of the world, like we don't trade in them. We haven't put any investment in human evolutionary time in picking and choosing and agriculturalizing them.
Have you got any examples of these?
So like yams, I guess.
I was going to say yams, but then I guess, okay, yams from the UK and maybe even the West. Although in America, of course, they call sweet potatoes yams, don't they?
Yeah, but it's not the same thing, is it?
It's not the same thing here. We're talking about more, it's like a big purpley, I think it's quite sweeter. I don't know if I've ever had a yam, but they're huge in Asia.
Yeah.
Like people love them, and all throughout Asia, I think as well. It's not just a tiny region.
Okay. Well, yams was just a guess that came off the top of my head. Do you want some from my list?
Yeah, please.
Teff, finger millet, yam. Roots and tubers that tend to be regionally important but not traded around the world and receive no attention by research networks.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Okay, that makes sense.
So basically, because they haven't been exploited on a large scale by humans before, in an agricultural sense, they're less productive usually, and you couldn't just plant a field full of yams and expect to get a yield compared to like a potato or something. And one of these orphan crops scientist Zachary B. Littman believes could be the next big berry.
Zachary who?
Zachary B. Littman.
Okay. So what you're saying is there's an orphan crop out there, unfamiliar to a large section of the world, that's had very little investment, but it could soon be as important as
the Big Four.
As the Big Four.
Or at least cran.
Yeah, at least the cranberry. Okay, all right, yeah.
Yeah.
What's this crop then?
It's called the ground cherry.
The ground cherry. Doesn't sound very nice.
Sounds delicious, doesn't it?
It sounds horrible.
Latin name, Physalis
Oh.
pruinosa.
Physalis.
Physalis, yeah.
Like a, is it physalis? Aren't they a little, that's like a type of fruit. It's kind of like a berry.
Chrysalis?
Oh my God, no. This it might actually be what it is. Or it could be physalis. I'm not sure how it's pronounced. Physalis, a genus. Yeah, this I know it.
Okay, well, we are.
It's like a fruit. It's like an orange fruit. It looks like a tiny
Marble.
Yeah, like a marble, and it's encased in like a husk of brown leaves.
Yeah, it's like a papery sheath.
Yes, yeah. They're delicious. They're lovely.
How would you describe the flavour? I've only got Zachary B. Littman's word on it.
It's nice. It's a bit fleshy, sweet. Maybe I don't know how to describe it.
Do you want to hear from Zachary B. Littman for some inspiration?
Maybe a little bitter, like a berry is, but go on, give me Littman's description.
He says, it's tropical, yet sour, sometimes with a hint of vanilla.
Okay. I can't think of the vanilla. Ground cherry. Maybe I'm thinking of a different.
Well, you've described it pretty much correctly.
Yeah, okay, ground cherries. Yeah, I think we are talking about the same thing. That's strange then, because I have had those before. I've seen them. I've even had puddings where they've been the little garnish on top.
Yeah, but they're not the next big berry.
No. You'd find them in Waitrose, for sure, when they're in season.
Okay, and I'll tell you why you don't find them everywhere.
Go on.
Because the way that they grow, for a start, is not very conducive to agriculture. So they have what's known as an indeterminate weedy growth habit. So that means it keeps growing and making leaves and buds until it dies from, whatever, frost or whatever.
Yeah.
And what you want in agriculture is that you have a crop that comes of age at the same time, all comes ready, and you can harvest it.
Yeah, that's ideal.
Yeah.
Doesn't always happen. Things like coffee, for example. Coffee's berries all mature at different times. Mm-hmm. Just, so it's a real pain. And that's why I guess you have so many people working on your coffee, getting your coffee from the country of origin to where you are. Yeah. But when you've got something like strawberries, which are easy to grow, or even raspberries, the canes, raspberries, blackberries, then I can see why this weedy growth. So you're saying it's unreliable, essentially?
Just that it's inconvenient that all the different parts of the tree mature, plant mature at different times. Like it carries on growing and growing and growing.
Okay. But don't raspberries do that? Don't strawberries do that? They don't just stop growing,
no,
do they?
But if you're walking through a field, not a field, but like a path with blackberries lining the sides, then one day there's no blackberries, the next day it's full of blackberries.
Yeah.
And that's the same with strawberries and stuff. Do you think those fields full of strawberries just all come about at once by accident?
No, you get a crop at the same sort of time, generally.
Exactly, but with these you don't.
Okay. Oh, okay, I see. So it might do one crop one day and then it will keep growing and it might do another crop then. So it's unreliable.
Well,
you don't know when it's...
They would all mature at different times. So it wouldn't be like it's done a whole crop in a day. They're constantly overlapping, every day there'll be one thing turning ripe. You know what I mean?
You don't have a season when you can just go out and harvest a crop of Physalis. You've got to constantly be monitoring for
I
when...
don't know why this is so hard for you to grasp.
Because you haven't explained it very well.
It's got an indeterminate weedy growth habit. It just carries on growing and producing fruits.
I mean, I think that sounds ideal, personally. I don't know why that's...
Because on a mass scale, when you're trying to harvest it, it's not ideal. You want to be able to plant them in sequence and know when your whole crop is going to fruit, get it all in, have another crop like that matures a week later.
Oh, I see. So you want to plant... Okay, you want to plant your strawberries one week, and then while they're maturing, plant some strawberries next week, and then plant some strawberries the week after, so that every week you can go and harvest a new crop of strawberries.
Yeah, that's the most efficient way to do it.
Right. Okay. Yes, that makes sense. Okay, I've got that now.
Oh, God.
You should have caveated that with exactly how berry cultivation works.
Do you think I'm an absolute expert in berry cultivation?
Well, you certainly make yourself out to be one.
Okay. So that isn't the only problem, actually, with growing it at an agricultural scale. Let's see if you can pick these ones apart as well.
All right.
Obviously, it's enclosed in a husk. Not ideal, but, you know, I could live with that, could you?
Yeah, I think if anything, that's... I'm just going to disagree with everything. I think that's like one of its defining features. It's almost like a gimmick that it has this little husk. That actually differentiates it from every other fruit that I see in the supermarket.
Yeah.
So I think the husk is good.
Okay, we're keeping the husk then. Don't bother fixing the husk. It's also one of the problems is it's got quite small fruits.
Yeah, but so do all berries.
But these small fruits fall to the ground when they're ripe.
Right.
And we've like selectively bred, you know, whatever, tomatoes, strawberries, so that they'll stay on the stems for longer so we can go out and pick them, yeah? Because if they go on the floor, they're basically no good to anyone because they'll be gone.
Yeah. So strawberries don't do that?
Well, we've selectively bred them so that they stay on the stem for longer, so that even when they're ripe, you can go up and pick a ripe strawberry from a tree, but a ground cherry, you pick it up from the ground.
Yeah, okay. I get what you mean there. I mean, yeah, they do fall off, but because we've been cultivating them for so long, they've now been selectively bred so that fewer of them fall off.
Well, that's the same thing as with the weedy growth habit.
Yeah.
Like we've got tomatoes in our garden in a basket that have got a weedy growth habit, but they're not the cultivar, the domestic tomato that all matures at similar times. Like,
where did you get those from then?
The Katie's.
Okay. Has she genetically modified them to have a weedy growth habit?
No, you can just still get like wild tomato species, which is fortunate because in the past, researchers have investigated which genes control the traits in tomatoes. And they're not actually that phylogenetically distant from the ground cherry species either. So they thought these gene regions, if we can find them in the ground cherry, might be a good place to go and have a play around and see if we can make a better crop.
Yes, okay, makes sense.
So step one, sequence the genome of the ground cherry.
Mm-hmm.
And then they used CRISPR gene editing to find the orthologs. So they're like regions that are analogous or orthologous, like, you know, similar sort of concepts.
Yeah, okay.
In the ground cherry genome and edit them to try and control the branching architecture and the flower productivity and the size of the fruit, things like that.
Okay. Make the fruit bigger, stay on the vine for longer, and make it less of a weedy crop.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. Easy peasy. All through the power of CRISPR.
Unfortunately, the trying to control the weedy growth went about as well as trying to explain what it was.
Yeah. Okay.
As far as they got it was, so they get shoots, but once they flowered, it would just completely stop growing. So what it ended up with was at the end of each shoot would just be a little cluster of 3 ground cherries,
Right.
which, makes them less productive, not more productive than if they could be growing them all the way up.
Oh, okay, I see.
Because none of the shoots were then continuing to have shoots come off them. You see what I mean?
Yeah, so it just ended at one sort of ground cherry node.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that was unfortunate, but they were successful in increasing the fruit density. So even though they didn't stop the bushy habit, they made more fruit grow on the bushy shrub. They increased it by 50%.
That's pretty good.
That's pretty good. And they also increased the individual fruit's mass by 24%.
That's pretty good.
Yeah. So we're at an exciting cross point where we could all be enjoying ground cherries, not just those of us who can afford to shop in Waitrose.
Over the last few weeks, I have been reading a lot about the dinosaurs.
Okay.
And, other subjects related to that particular period of time. The age of the reptiles, the Mesozoic era. So read a book on geology, and I'm currently reading one on dinosaurs. And just done a little bit of research, Now, a month or so ago, and long before that as well, I probably would have considered myself a bit of a dinosaur enthusiast. And in fact, we've touched on the topics in previous episodes. We talked about the fossilized dinosaur dandruff, ancient frogs trapped in amber, that sort of stuff. But from what I've learned over the last few weeks, actually reading into all of this stuff, is that I truly knew very, very little about the dinosaurs.
Yeah, I think I'm probably the same.
But I guess I would have always considered myself a bit of an authority, even though I was probably little more than just a big fan of Jurassic Park. And I have good dinosaur identification skills, but...
Oh, I bet they come in really useful.
I mean, I know... I've met people who don't know what a Stegosaurus is and what a Triceratops is, and everyone knows a Tyrannosaurus Rex and all that, but I go a little bit further than that, I think. I mean, I don't think I've really improved my dinosaur identification skills since I was probably about 10 years old.
I think mine are probably worse than then.
Really?
Oh, I knew loads of dinosaurs then.
Really? And you've lost them?
Yeah.
Okay. I think I can remember all the dinosaurs I could remember when I was 10. I don't know. I was very enthusiastic as a child. I had a magazine series where you got a new bone each week, and then you slotted them in all together, and you built a big model of Tyrannosaurus Rex, and it glowed in the dark. It was brilliant. It was really, really good. And then after that, the magazine was well, we're still popular, so what should we do? And then it was we'll do a Triceratops, and then they did a big old Triceratops. It was great. I kept collecting it. My parents spent a fortune on those magazines.
Artworks, yeah. I had a Doctor Who DVD collection.
Did you? They've kind of gone, haven't they, those magazines?
No, I don't think so. I think that's just because you don't have young children.
Yeah, maybe that's true.
There was a Disney baking goods one out a couple of years ago.
Oh, was there?
I bought some episodes of. Issues of.
But they, I don't think they're always for young kids. I remember seeing a James Bond classic car edition.
Yeah, or build the HMS Endeavour or something.
Exactly, yeah. Exactly. Although, that's probably the sort of thing I might do nowadays.
I can't believe that anybody does those. It's such a rip-off.
Yeah, they are. They are. And you have to wait forever as well. Waiting a whole week for a new piece. That is rubbish.
You're supposed to be reading the magazine during that time, where you read everything about the one pipe you've been given.
Yeah, they are rubbish. But I loved the dinosaur magazines, and I did enjoy the little magazine as well. It was quite good. I don't think I read every single one, but occasionally I'd give it a good read. Maybe I did, I don't know. Anyway, a few episodes ago we were talking about something, and I think I said something about a certain branch of dinosaurs being archaeosaurs or something like that.
Yeah.
And reading about dinosaurs has made me realise how stupid that was.
Are archosaurs birds?
First of all, it's archosaur, which means ruling reptiles, like arc, and saur is obviously like lizard or reptile. Arc as in archangel, the ruling angel or whatever. And secondly, all dinosaurs belong to the archosaur group. everything from, the heavy-bodied, long-necked sauropods like Brachiosaurus to all the duckbills, the raptors, and also non-dinosaurs like crocodiles and pterosaurs.
And the birds?
And the birds, yeah. Birds, which we know evolved from the dinosaurs. So if all the dinosaurs belong to the group, then of course birds do, because birds
Just checking. It could be paraphyletic.
No, it could. That's true. But yes, they did. They belong to it as well.
Okay.
Okay, so I was going to ask if you knew that, but it doesn't sound like you did. You were uncertain.
Yeah.
Because I feel a bit foolish. I don't know actually whether I kept that in to the podcast. I don't really listen to the podcasts. Once I mix them, I'm absolutely sick of our voices.
Well, I do, but I don't quite remember.
Yeah, exactly. I kind of forget what we've covered.
It wasn't a soundbite.
No, it wasn't. But I just think now it's going to make me cringe if I ever hear that. I just got it completely wrong. And I acted like I knew what I was talking about. And it's like, no, not really.
Well, that's what I feel like every time I listen to an episode.
Yeah. I think what I did is I confused the term archosaur with theropod. Obviously, they don't sound
Classic.
the same, but I think I just, thought they were interchangeable or whatever. Anyway, theropods are a certain group of archosaurs, a certain type of dinosaur, and they contain those archetypical bipedal dinosaurs that we associate with dinosaurs like T-Rex, Velociraptor, Allosaurus. And those are species that anyone with even like a slight interest in dinosaurs are likely to know.
Yeah.
Also, I will include a picture of all the dinosaurs that I talk about in this section in the show notes for anyone
I think
unfamiliar.
that people will confuse Velociraptor with one of the flyers.
Do you think so?
Yeah, I always do. Because raptor,
Yeah, it's a bird of prey, isn't it?
Yeah, it's misleading.
They are so like birds, though. I mean, they are so like birds, particularly the raptors. The way they moved, that we've seen through 3D modeling and computer programs, have enabled us to see the way that these animals would have moved, and they just look exactly like birds. I can imagine their heads bobbing and all sorts.
Yeah, there was that thing where they attached a fake plastic tail to a chicken and saw how it ran, and yeah, it's like a T-Rex.
That's amazing. That's cool. I'll see if I can find that and put that in the show notes.
Yeah.
There was a picture I saw, I'm just thinking of this now, of a juvenile green heron. And it looked so much like a little baby dinosaur. You can just see dinosaurs have not gone extinct,
Yeah.
Let me see. Sorry, I am digressing slightly. Here it is. I'll send it to you and then obviously show notes.
Oh my God, yeah. That's terrifying. Oh God.
I mean, it's awesome, but it is a dinosaur, So I wanted to talk about dinosaurs and some of the cool things that I've learnt about them, having actually done a bit more research and now that I know what I'm talking about.
Okay.
So what's your favourite dinosaur?
I'm going to say Tyrannosaurus. Tyrannosaurus.
Nice, you got that one second time.
Yeah. No, I'll say Brachiosaurus because that is one that I have fond memories of. It seems like a gentle giant.
Of course. I'm glad you've said that because that's the dinosaur that I would have chosen.
Oh well, there we are.
I love sauropods. I think they're amazing, and that's like the whole family. I don't know whether it's a genetic family, but the group of animals that are all those long-necked, Brachiosaurus, that sort of model, basically. And these are the dinosaurs that I want to talk about. So good choice.
Thanks.
It is a hard question to answer because there are so many cool dinosaurs. But I agree with you. I've always had a soft spot for the sauropods as well, particularly Brachiosaurus, which I think I was familiar with because it's the dinosaur in Jurassic Park, the first one that you see.
Yeah.
Yeah. So obviously you'll know this. Everyone will know this. These things were enormous.
Mm-hmm.
So big, in fact, that when the first sauropod bones were discovered in the early 19th century, scientists were convinced that they didn't belong to land animals. They thought they were whale bones that they'd found.
Okay. Yeah, I can get that.
Why do you think the scientists thought they were whale bones?
Because whales are big. The whales are the biggest,
Yeah.
And we haven't got anything that reaches the size on land at the moment that the biggest dinosaurs did.
There are no contemporary animals, that are anything like the sauropods.
Nothing, not rocking around in the 19th century, no.
No. And I guess one of the things I would think is we would assume, due to laws of physics, it's impossible for land animals to grow that big.
Yeah, but it's a density thing, isn't it? Because whales are in water. The water itself, like the pressure from the water around, supports the body.
Yes.
Whereas if you put it on land, you might think it had just collapsed because it was too heavy. It had nothing to support it.
Too heavy, hard to pump blood around the body. You know, you'd have to have correspondingly giant muscles. So you're going to have to consume lots of food.
Mm-hmm.
So these are all things that I want to talk about, actually. So sauropods were present throughout the entire Mesozoic. The first ones appeared in the Triassic, which was the first period of the Mesozoic era, where the early species reached maximum sizes of about 2 to 3 tons.
Okay.
That's roughly the same as the very low end of a female Asian elephant.
Okay,
It's
right.
like the smallest possible adult elephant that we can get, I think. So it's a decent size.
Yeah, but we're not talking double-decker bus.
No, and we can do much, much better, right? So after the Triassic, we moved into the Jurassic.
Very famous.
And that's when Pangaea split apart. We now had the continents drifting away from one another. And I think this was a period of lots of volcanic activity or whatever. In the Jurassic, species like Brontosaurus and our favourite Brachiosaurus appeared. And these guys reached sizes of upwards of 30 tons. So 10 times as much as the Triassic counterparts.
Yeah.
So that's huge.
What are we talking in a common weight?
Well, let's use Brachiosaurus as an example. So Brachiosaurus was estimated to have been between 18 and 21 meters long, 59 to 69 feet in length. So I guess that's from the tip of the tail all the way to the top of the head.
Yeah.
So a bloody tall animal.
Mm-hmm.
It's about as high as 30 feet off the ground. What's 30 feet? That's got to be like 3 stories.
Oh, yeah, easy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe more.
Okay, so we're talking bigger than a house.
Yeah.
Way bigger.
And a double-decker bus weighs 12.5 tons. So these things weighed about the same and upwards of 3 double-decker buses.
Big old dinosaurs then.
Big dinosaurs. However, entering the Cretaceous, the final period of the Mesozoic era, all of these species disappeared. So there was no Brachiosaurus, no Brontosaurus, no Diplodocus in the Cretaceous, because they were all replaced by the aptly named Titanosaurs. Yeah, exactly. Now, this group includes probably slightly less familiar names. Argentinosaurus, Patagotitan, and my favourite named dinosaur, Dreadnoughtus.
Okay.
That's a cool name for a dinosaur, isn't it?
Should I be Googling these?
Yeah, you can do if you want. Dreadnoughtus doesn't have many pictures. There's not much paleo art of Dreadnoughtus, unfortunately. But there should be some stuff for Argentinosaurus. Have a look.
Yeah.
Yeah? I mean, it's the same sort of body plan, right? But
yeah, it looks very similar, but a little bit meatier.
Yeah.
In the neck region, I'd say.
Yeah.
Dreadnoughtus also looks similar, but I mean, just crazy long neck.
Anyway, some of these species, the Titanosaurs, weighed more than 50 tons.
Okay.
Which is heavier than a Boeing 737.
Wow.
In fact, Patagotitan, if that's how you say it, was fairly recently estimated at 76 tons, which is about 2/3 as heavy as a blue whale. Amazing for an animal that's not in the water, that's not supported by that doesn't have its weight supported by the water. The study that estimated this weight, I'll put in the show notes as well. just for evidence for anybody who doubts that. There's a lot of debate in the paleontology community, I think, over how much these things weighed. When they were first discovered, I think estimates were upwards of like 300, 400 tons, maybe 1,000 tons.
Yeah.
And over time, we've sort of taken the sensationalism down to still amazing, but maybe more realistic estimations. Anyway, there may have even been heavier dinosaurs than that. That's just a few that I've looked at, that I've done some research on, and obviously there may still be some larger dinosaurs waiting to be dug up. I did read actually that there's a new dinosaur discovered every week on average.
Wow.
A new species every week. That doesn't surprise you?
Yeah, it does surprise me. Like, I don't know, like, I don't hear about it. And I look for science stories at least once a month. So it's not that I'm not surprised by it. It's just that I don't believe it.
Maybe we should do Dinosaur of the Week. Or Dinosaur of the Episode. Dinosaur of the Month. We tend to do monthly episodes. I think maybe in 2019, maybe next year, we're starting from next year, Dinosaur of the Month. Anyway, I said that I was reading a book at the moment. The book that I'm reading is called The Rise and Fall of the Dinosaurs by a guy called Steve Brissetti. He's a paleontologist, and it's got a great section on sauropods where he talks about how these animals evolved to be such behemoths. It's very clear, the fact that we don't have any of these animals around nowadays, or anything that resembles them nowadays, that it's very difficult for animals to evolve in this way, right? In our post-dinosaur world. Otherwise, if those niches surely haven't disappeared. So why haven't we seen something else?
Yeah, basically the best we've got for Brachiosaurus is a giraffe.
Yeah.
And it's not that close.
No, you're right. You're right.
Well, it's actually...
It's fair. I mean,
it's pretty close, actually.
It's, I guess. It's a big, long-necked animal.
Yeah.
That, feeds in vegetation very high up. Yeah.
Maybe the trees are smaller.
Maybe, in the savannah. They are a little smaller, aren't they? Or sparse. I don't know. Anyway. It's really interesting, and this guy, Steve Brissetti, he outlines all the ways in which sauropods were able to evolve to exploit these niches, or evolve to become this large. So he lists a few things that an animal that size needs. Number one, obviously access to loads of food to support their enormous size. Number two, efficient breathing. Think of how much oxygen is needed to power a body that large.
Yeah.
Well, number three is a really strong skeleton that isn't also incredibly heavy and impossibly cumbersome. The bone is really heavy, yeah? So if you get larger and larger and larger, you need a stronger skeleton. So the more bone you add, the more cumbersome you become. I guess the more muscle mass you have to develop, the more bone you need to support. I don't know. It's blows my mind, that.
Yeah.
There are a few more in the book, but I don't want to ruin it completely. So I was just going to use those three examples. Let's go through them in the order I said them, starting with number one. All right, and we'll play a little game. So, number one, access to food. I think this is fairly easy. So how did the sauropods cope with being able to access lots of food?
By growing bigger?
Well, by growing the neck, right?
Yeah.
It's all in the neck. Because by evolving to reach the high up branches, sauropods were accessing a whole new region of like unexploited foliage. And also when you have a large neck, you can just park yourself somewhere and eat for hours without even moving your feet.
Yeah.
So there's very little energy expenditure.
So you conserve energy in that way. Okay.
Exactly, but loads and loads of food. So once the sauropods have evolved to exploit this high up vegetation, that enabled them to gain larger bodies over evolutionary time. Okay, so that takes us to number two. Breathing. What do you know about sauropod lungs or even bird lungs? This one's a little tough unless you know a bit about anatomy.
Yeah, I think they've got lots of... is it lots of chambers or something?
It's called a unidirectional lung.
Okay, yeah.
Which is where oxygen is extracted during both inhalation and exhalation. So a bird, which I don't get the unidirectional thing of that. That seems to me to be both ways, but yeah. But essentially, when a bird inhales, it stores some of the oxygen that it's inhaled and isn't using in air sacs. And then that is then extracted again when it exhales. So every breath a bird takes is like double the oxygen.
Okay, yeah.
And this is how they can power their systems for flight, and also why they can fly at super high altitudes where the oxygen is very, very thin and we would struggle. In comparison, mammals like you, me, cows, giraffes, manatees, all the mammals, you know the mammals, we've all got really simple lungs. So we breathe in oxygen and just exhale carbon dioxide. We don't get any extra oxygen as we're breathing out. So that's where the difference is. I guess that's why a giraffe hasn't been able to put on excess weight.
Yeah.
Because
its weight is very close to the ground, whereas some of the dinosaurs I've just looked at had very muscular necks all the way up to the top.
Yes, well, that's another thing, right?
Giraffe's got a small head.
So that moves us on, because that's the skeleton, and that's in the head. Imagine having all that weight, all that bone in your neck as you moved it around. You'd be toppling over. It'd be a huge weight to be moving around.
Yeah.
And also tiring. You'd be using so much energy. So how can the skeleton of a sauropod, or how can a sauropod evolve to have a skeleton that isn't super heavy? Do you have any sort of hypotheses for this? Hollow
bones.
You're right. So it's directly related to the air sacs that I mentioned. The air sacs that the sauropods would have had invade the bone in the sauropod body plan, and they hollow certain bones out, meaning that instead of being filled with bone, the bones are filled with air. So the way that Steve Brissati describes this is like an air-filled basketball. So it's really strong, but also really lightweight.
Yeah.
So this enabled the sauropods to have a really sturdy skeleton without making it super cumbersome. That's what I wanted to talk about, essentially.
No, that's really interesting. Yeah,
it's amazing, isn't it?
It's good how they all link together.
Yeah, exactly. You need all of these things, and there are, as I say, a couple more in the book that I urge anybody to read. It really, really is a good book on dinosaurs, and there are all these features that needed to evolve so that these animals could attain this huge size. And then they dominated, throughout the entire Mesozoic era. There aren't many dinosaurs that did that, I don't think, or groups of dinosaurs, at least ones that are recognizable to us. So it's incredible that they managed to do that. And in doing that, they also became, as far as we know, the last animals to attain those sizes on Earth.
Yeah, but where are the birds?
What do you mean?
I guess now they've evolved flight.
So the sauropod line died out. The birds evolved.
Well, they've got a lot of the similar traits.
Yeah, they do. They do. Not all the dinosaurs had this unidirectional lung. Even the sauropods obviously didn't have a lung exactly like a bird has. It's just the sauropod's lung was more like a bird's than it's like ours. There were other dinosaurs as well that didn't have these lungs. Tyrannosaurus rex did have a lung, and that's why it could also get very, very large. Without, I guess most of the dinosaurs that we think of that got really large, they probably did have these really efficient respiratory systems.
Yeah, very interesting.
Yeah, I mean, dinosaurs are just absolutely fascinating. They completely owned the Earth for some 150 million years. And it's just amazing how much we can learn about their ecology and evolution simply by looking through the fossil record.
Yeah.
We've got such a good idea on some of these dinosaurs, especially the charismatic ones. We've got more of an idea of how they lived than some species that are still alive today. It's incredible. And another thing that he talked about with these sauropods is that they were so diverse, and you would have ecosystems where it wasn't like there was one sauropod species. There would be one sauropod species that was evolved specifically to feed on the top of the trees, one that would access the ones below the trees, another one that's neck never really came up high, but it would sweep the ferns at the ground level. You had these really complex ecosystems full of all sorts of different sauropod organisms all living together harmoniously, I guess.
Well, I mean, you can say that now about lots of groups there.
What? What groups?
Mammals.
Yeah, but mammals is such a larger group than sauropods.
Is it? Okay, yeah, well then rodents then.
Do many rodents live together in the same groups?
Well, I don't think they're suggesting that the dinosaurs lived in social groups, right? Just that they lived like on top of each other.
Yeah, they lived in the same ecosystem
Yeah,
at the
so you
same
get like
time.
tree rats and mice and things that will all have overlapping territories.
Yeah, I guess that's true. But I think the spectacular thing about this is that these weren't tiny little rodents. They were
Yeah, no, that's true,
enormous dinosaurs consuming massive quantities of food, and they all lived together. It's amazing. It must have been a great time to be a carnivore as well. There must have been a lot of meat going around.
Yeah.
Although hard to procure, maybe. I don't know. Have you seen Jurassic Park yet?
Jurassic Park 1?
Yeah.
I think so, yeah.
No, you said you think so, but you don't know.
I haven't watched it again,
Well,
if I've ever watched it, so...
You need to watch it.
I've seen Jurassic World.
No, that's rubbish. Forget that. It's nothing like that. That is rubbish. That is
Okay.
Hollywood trash. Watch Jurassic Park, the original. Please do. And then tell me your honest thoughts on it. I think you might hate it, but you might also be able to admit that some of it is really, really good.
Okay, I will do. That's my homework. It was the Conservative Party conference in Birmingham this week, did you see?
Yeah, I did. Was that today?
It's been going on for the last couple of days, but Theresa May spoke today.
Yes, I saw that.
Oh, well, I don't want to talk about her dancing.
No, it's boring, isn't it?
You see, the thing is, I did think it was great.
Her dancing.
I know I don't like her, but I do. It was almost designed perfectly to impress me. Make me think she was less of a monster. Well, I don't want to talk about our Prime Minister anyway. I want to talk about our Home Secretary,
Oh, yeah?
Sajid Javid. Did you hear this week that he announced he's going after middle-class drug users?
Is he?
Yeah, he said that for too long, middle-class people have been getting away with going to the parties and doing the cocaine while working-class people were criminalised for drug use.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. I guess the middle class people have been buying it from the working class people.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So you know, he's tackling a different class now. But if you're listening, Sajid, that's old news. Like, I've got news about drug taking in an even higher class.
Even higher?
Yeah.
Hold on.
Cephalopoda.
Oh, I saw this. I don't know if I'd call them a higher class.
I meant in the term, you would call it a higher class, as in like phylum, kingdom, class, family, genus, species.
A different class. They're not
Okay.
higher, are they?
In the middle class is a subsection of the species Homo sapiens. Yes, it is a higher classification.
Oh, okay. All right. I see. Yeah.
If anyone hasn't seen the news, it's about octopuses on MDMA.
Yes, which is the active ingredient in ecstasy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's, you know, that's what they called it in the 90s.
I think people still have ecstasy, don't they?
I'm not sure. I would think of ecstasy as more like a pill.
Yeah, but that's what I mean. It's the active ingredient in the pill.
Oh, okay, right. I'm not an expert.
It's the thing in the pill that gets you high. And
Yeah.
then there are other adulterants in the pill as well.
Washing powder.
Yeah. My school told me that it was going to be fish tank cleaner tablets. That's what drug dealers were selling people, and a load of people died. I don't know. Yeah. That's what my school said.
So, back to the octopuses. Or should I be...
I think you can say octopuses. I know what you're going to say.
Can.
I think octopi is wrong.
I wrote octopi in my notes, but then I just backed out of saying it because it just doesn't sound right.
And I don't think it is right either.
Okay, right, so octopuses. Back to the octopuses.
Octopuses, yeah.
They are generally quite solitary creatures, very antisocial. So it was a huge surprise to the scientific world like 2 years ago or so when scientists realized that there was a species of octopus called Octopus tetricus that could use its camouflage, like its color changing ability, to communicate with each other.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, so they were doing like a dark for aggression, light for retreat sort of system.
And it makes no sense for those animals to have those mechanisms if they wouldn't naturally socialize or at least come in contact with one another regularly.
Well, exactly. Yeah, they were doing it to warn conspecifics of, their intentions, I guess, like saying, don't mess with me or leave me alone. But that behavior is nothing compared to the power of MDMA. So, according to Wikipedia, I did a bit of research. MDMA is often considered the drug of choice within the rave culture and is also used at clubs, festivals, and house parties. ... Some users enjoy the feeling of mass communion from the inhibition-reducing effects of the drug, while others use it as party fuel because of the drug's stimulatory effects. So you've got these octopuses. These ones really are antisocial. They don't do the colour changing thing that had been noted before. You think, are we going to get these to loosen up a little bit, enjoy spending time with each other? MDMA sounds like a pretty good candidate, yeah?
Yeah, give them a drug that in humans makes the human subjects love their fellow man and party on long into the night.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this species, Octopus bimaculoides, I'm quite pleased with myself there.
So octopus is a genus, is it? If they're all called octopus something.
I think there are octopi that aren't in the octopus genus.
You've just switched to octopi.
I think it's like fish and fishes.
I don't think it is.
Okay.
But you can treat it like that.
No, you know what I mean? Like, so if I'm talking about several species of octopuses,
yeah,
you would say octopi.
Yeah.
Several species of octopi, you would say octopi.
So, yeah, with fish, if you've got like 3 clownfish, you'd say, oh, look at those fish.
Yeah.
But if you had 3 clownfish, a blue tang, an angelfish, and a pufferfish, you'd say, oh, that's a lovely tank of fishes.
Yeah.
All right, let's treat the octopus rule like that.
Okay, so bimaculoides is very antisocial. Not only have we got behavioural descriptions of them from the literature, but the scientists in this study did a formal test of social behaviours, and the octopuses, male or female, showed no preference for approaching novel male conspecifics, like new males that you introduce to their environments. So the way they tested it actually was a cool little experiment, I thought. They had like a 3-chambered tank, one of the chambers being empty, one of them that had a cage with a plastic octopus in it, and the other one with a live octopus in it.
Right.
When it was a live female octopus in it, they were more interested, especially the males. They would actually maybe go and spend more time in the female octopus's tank. But using the male octopus in the cage, they just weren't bothered about it at all. They spent more time with the plastic toy than they spent with the male octopus. But this was without MDMA. Once you introduce MDMA, not only did it spend more time with the other octopus, so the male octopuses spent more time with the male, the female octopuses would spend more time with the male. They actually started hugging the cage and putting the mouth parts all over it, which I think is what Wikipedia would call a mass communion.
What do you mean a mass communion?
From the MDMA description.
Is a mass communion not enjoyment in the company of others?
Well, yeah, there we are.
But this one's hugging a cage.
With an octopus in it, like it's trying its best to give it a hug and the octopus version of a kiss, I guess.
Could just be enjoying the texture of the cage.
But well, then why wouldn't it go to the cage with the plastic toy in like it did before?
Okay, yeah, that does make sense. Okay, so there's a central tank with a cage on one side and a cage on the other, and a live octopus on one side and a plastic octopus in the other side. And after the MDMA is introduced, the subject octopus moves away from the cage containing the plastic octopus and towards the cage containing the live octopus.
Yeah, and also within the context of each chamber, the behaviour is like quite different. The hugging behaviour and the sucking behaviour isn't what it was doing before when it was hanging out with the plastic octopus or the real octopus. It would just be like in the chamber.
Yeah, okay. So it looks like it really wants to get to the other octopus. It really wants to be mates with the octopus.
Yeah. So obviously they didn't just randomly dump ecstasy into a tank and see if anything happened.
I was going to ask about the mechanism.
Yeah.
Go on.
So they thought they'd test it out because they'd noticed conserved gene regions between humans and octopi.
Pussies.
This one species of octopus, actually, so it should be octopuses.
Yeah, okay. All right, yeah.
So, like, sort of unbelievably, the gene region that codes for a transporter protein that binds serotonin, the neurotransmitter, to the membrane of neurons, the region coding for it is almost identical between the humans and the octopuses. And this is where MDMA also binds to the neurons. So if we're trying to understand octopuses' brains, which are these things that we don't understand very well, and we find these regions that are like completely identical to something that we understand, you know, reasonably well compared to octopus brains, and we know what MDMA does for us, then this is like a great shortcut for figuring out if it does the same thing, if it works in the same way, like if the serotonin plays the same role, if the MDMA binds in the same way, things like that.
Right, okay.
Not only do we see, though, that the MDMA expressionally appears to work like us, it appears to be like exactly the same.
I don't know how surprising that is.
Okay. Well, it's very surprising because an octopus is a mollusk. You know, when you see these pictures of what happens to a spider's web or whatever, when you, I don't know, give it cocaine, it just does spidery things, but in a different way.
Well, yeah, but markedly different. I've seen that image, and I'll put it in the show notes. I don't know how true it is, actually. I've seen it, and it's just examples of spider webs after the spiders have been given particular drugs. And I think one of the key takeaways from that, a lot of people like to point out, is that the caffeine is the
messed up one.
The drug, yeah, that really messes it up. But then, I mean, how much are they giving them? You know, if you give them the tiniest little, one tiny little grain of cocaine and a fucking shit ton of caffeine, then yeah, that makes sense, you know?
But in this case, it's something different. Like, it's a behavioural change that you see in both humans and in the octopuses. The spiders don't start hugging each other when they're on MDMA.
Do you know that?
No, I don't.
Do you know if spiders don't become more social?
We don't start shitting silk in crap patterns when we have coffee.
No, we don't. But we don't do the silk anyway.
Yeah, you know? I know. Well, the octopuses don't do the interacting with male conspecifics.
They obviously do a certain degree because they've evolved this function to signal to one another.
That's a different species.
Oh, and this species doesn't at all.
Don't be bringing
Go on.
Tetricus into this.
Tetricus. Sorry, yeah, I remember now. You said this was a different species.
Yeah, Bimaculoides.
Essentially, just going back to the part where you said that this is surprising, I feel like it's just chemistry. All it is when you take an ecstasy tablet or some MDMA is it's playing around with your serotonin levels so that you get a big dose of happiness and a big dose of let's hug my friends. Whereas, you know, I don't understand why that wouldn't happen in an octopus as well. Sure, like the receptors might be different.
Because no, it's incredibly surprising that the gene regions coding for this transporter are exactly the same. That the transporter has exactly the same shape. Well, probably not exactly the same shape, but such a similar shape in humans and octopuses that are so far diverged from each other. You wouldn't necessarily expect, like, I don't know, trying to think of something quite related to us, but not too related to us. A bird if you gave a bird some MDMA, you might not expect it to do anything. I don't know.
I don't know. This would be really surprising to me if I knew that the researchers had given a load of animals MDMA and most of them, or all of them, apart from the octopus, was like, oh, what was that? But I don't know that that's the case. I have nothing to compare this to. The fact that an octopus has a really good time on a drug that humans have a really good time on, I don't know. It doesn't shock me that much.
Here we are. Dogs and cats given ecstasy will get horribly hot. Heart rate and breathing will skyrocket. They will go into seizures and die from arrhythmia or kidney failure.
That happens to humans if they have enough.
Surely you can find a better way to spend an evening than playing Russian roulette with an animal's life with a dose of criminal animal cruelty on the side.
Who said that?
Somebody on the internet. Anderson Mura.
Well, I agree with you, Anderson Mura. But again, we're not talking doses here.
Yeah, no, but the octopuses loved it.
Yeah, I know, but I don't know what doses they gave to the octopuses. If they gave the octopuses a huge dose...
I guess the octopuses had plenty of water to drink.
But that's bad. You shouldn't drink too much water.
Yeah.
It makes your brain expand. Or something.
Oh, no, yeah. Your ions.
I think that's how a few people have died taking ecstasy, by drinking too much water.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. It doesn't surprise me that cats and dogs given an unspecified dose of MDMA die, because I think if you gave a huge dose to any animal, it would die. If you give any substance to something in a huge quantity, it would kill the animal. So, I'm sorry. It's an interesting story, and I'm glad I know it. But until I find out that most of the animal kingdom don't have that reaction, I refuse to be surprised.
Okay.
You're just going to agree?
Well, I mean, what can I do to claw it back? You weren't impressed with me class cephalopoda joke. And now you just don't think it's impressive that octopuses are off the tits?
What's your opinion on penguins?
Well, what kind?
Just generally, like penguins. You choose the type. I don't mind.
Do you remember when it was a big deal when we lived in Hull? Because our local, well, the UK's only, actually, submararium.
The aquarium, yeah. The deep.
Acquired some Gentoos, are they called? Gentoo penguins?
Yeah, I don't know how you pronounce it, which is a recurring theme.
They were rubbish.
I've never seen them.
Yeah, they were very I think it took them a long time to get settled in. Maybe they're good. I've seen, when you go to the zoo and you see them flying around underwater, it is very impressive.
That's true.
They're okay. But, if you're going to be flightless, then at least get big.
Do you reckon? Not just get super good at swimming. You've just complimented their swimming.
Yeah.
At least they've done something. Not like the kiwi. Just really cute.
Yeah, that's true. That's small and flightless.
I think, yeah, you're right. It depends on the type. I'm particularly fond of macaroni penguins. I think they're called. Do you know those?
Yeah. Have they got a moustache?
No, they've got yellow fronds on top of their heads and yellow plumage. I think a few of the penguins have that sort of decoration. But macaroni penguins, I think, look quite funny. They look the funniest, I'd say. So you've seen penguins at the zoos, yeah? Lots of zoos have got them, but they usually, this isn't the case with the deep, with the Gentoos, but I usually find that the penguins that zoos have are either Humboldt or African penguins. They're usually the small ones that, like you say, swim around. In those, usually have an area that's above ground and then an area where you have those big windows underwater and you can watch them, yeah. So they have those small penguins, and they're not really what I think of when I picture a penguin in my head. I tend to think of something a lot more adapted to the extreme cold. Yeah, exactly, like an emperor, a king penguin, or even a gentoo penguin. I think that they're more penguin-like in my mind than these Humboldts are. But they're all right. I don't want to slag them off. So there was a news story this week. I don't think you'll have seen it, or you would have clocked. But one of the many zoos here in the UK that we have in the UK has recently spent quite a bit of time promoting its new penguin exhibit, which is a new enclosure specially designed for a batch of Humboldt penguins, which are being bred in Europe in an international captive breeding program. Because these Humboldt penguins, they're a vulnerable species. I think, habitat destruction, fragmentation in their native Chile has caused them to become vulnerable. So there's this international effort to breed a captive population that could eventually one day be reintroduced. So this is Telford Zoo in Shropshire. I've never been. Have you? Have you been to Telford Zoo?
No, I don't think so, but this story is beginning to form in my head.
They've been gearing up for months for these penguins to arrive, but unfortunately, an outbreak of avian malaria, which was responsible for killing 25 penguins in Longleat Safari Park back in 2016. This outbreak means that the penguin suppliers in Europe have had to postpone the penguin delivery, leaving Telford Zoo with an empty enclosure and presumably some very disappointed visitors.
Oh, yeah. Nothing worse than like standing by a cage and thinking, what's supposed to be in there? And then there's nothing in there.
I prefer the term enclosure to cage.
Wow. Okay. They're hardly even enclosed, the penguin ones, usually. It's usually open top.
Well, they're not going to fly away, are they?
No.
So, what do you think Telford Zoo have done?
Okay, I obviously don't know this story. Right, Telford. I don't know, because they're too small, aren't they, to just dress someone up as a penguin?
When you say that.
Okay. Because for an emperor, you could get away with it, I think, convincingly.
Yeah.
But you're never going to be zipping around in the water like a Humboldt.
We'll get to that later, but I'll tell you what they've decided to do. They have stocked the enclosure with plastic models of penguins instead.
Okay.
And they're not Humboldt penguin models, might I add. Misleading, once again. So I've got a great quote from the director of the zoo, Scott Adams, who apparently used to appear on Blue Peter quite regularly. Anyway, he spoke to the Mirror and said, because of the outbreak of penguin malaria, we were unable to get hold of 3 pairs we'd been planning to get in for visitors to enjoy. Instead, we've had to use life-size models of various different species of penguins, so we can at least educate visitors to an extent.
That's nice.
Do you think so?
Yeah, I think that's nice.
I think it's rubbish.
Well,
you might as well leave it empty. Nobody wants to see penguin models.
there's an exhibition called Dino World in Hull,
Yeah.
which is basically just plastic models of dinosaurs. But I guess, penguins do exist.
I've sent you the news article.
Yeah.
And it's got some pictures of these models.
It's
they're
called
all right.
Telford Exotic Zoo. You didn't mention that.
Oh, no, it is, yeah. Well, Telford Zoo, I'm sure they take that as well.
Do you reckon they just add these?
No, they had to buy them, especially in Devon, I think.
They look a bit beaten up. They could have done with a paint.
They do, yeah. I'd have given them a lick of paint. But I don't know, maybe that's more lifelike. Maybe penguins do look a bit, I don't know.
No, I think they're quite good. I think the enclosure looks quite sad.
It does. It does.
It's not
but
very big. The little swimming pool thing is tiny. I don't know how far back it goes.
It's a brand new enclosure that's cost tens of thousands of pounds, apparently, to build and spent months in development.
If you scroll down a little bit further to the entrance to the Telford Exotic Zoo, it does look like it's run out of someone's shed. Prices, adults, £3.50, children, £2.50.
Well, zoos struggle now.
It's not going to be a great zoo, is it?
Oh, the whole enclosure doesn't look that good, actually. Yeah. Why is the pool blue as well?
Well, the walls are blue.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like, it's ugly. I'd do it like a rock colour.
Yeah, it's horrible.
Yeah. I could have designed it better. Oh, it does look like a shed. I shouldn't laugh, really. Well, neither of us should. Because, a lot of zoos have lost penguins due to this outbreak. I think what's happened is they've sent them away.
I wasn't laughing at the penguin malaria outbreak. I was laughing at Telford Exotic Zoo.
Telford Exotic Zoo, if you do want to sponsor a show, please do get in touch.
Well, if you want to see wild animals in Telford, just like go to the city centre.
I don't know where Telford is.
Near me.
Is it? Stoke?
Yeah.
Near Stoke? Or near
No.
York?
Nearer to Stoke.
Okay.
It's in the West Mids.
Anyway, I think what's happened is zoos have probably, the ones that have these penguins, I think what they do is every year during penguin breeding season, they send them off to Europe where the stud bookkeepers and people in charge of the breeding program pair them up with different lineages so that they can mix the genes and everything so that they can ensure that they're getting the best possible next generation of penguins. And so many of them have died that when they're coming back to the UK, there are no surplus penguins for the zoo to look after.
Maybe there's a penguin deficit.
I think that's what it is, essentially. That less penguins are coming back than went. And usually more penguins would come back than went because they've been breeding.
I mean, you say that, but isn't that why we voted for Brexit? Every year we're sending hundreds of our penguins to Europe and getting nothing back.
British penguins for Britain.
Lovely. That's such a good tagline.
Despite being exclusively from the Southern Hemisphere. Apparently it's unlikely that the zoo is going to get any penguins until next year at the earliest now. So those plastic penguins, they might look tatty now. What are they going to look like in a year's time?
Probably about the same, because it's not like they're going to get knocked around by anything alive.
No, I suppose, but they would get weathered.
Oh, yeah, okay, yeah. We should do a little trip to Telford Exotic Zoo.
You want to do a trip now?
Maybe when they get penguins.
Yeah.
Or you know, or now.
Yeah, we should go now. We should.
I just want to see the rest of it. I'm pretty sure that nobody from Telford Exotic Zoo will be listening, but I am sorry for slagging it off. I'm sure it's very nice.
I'm sure it is, and I'm sure that they're doing good work. If they're participating in this breeding program, then that's good. That's good. Good for them. So we shouldn't laugh at them.
A bargain.
What do you mean?
£3.50.
Is that how much it is to get in?
For adults, only £2.50 for children. How much does it get into London Zoo?
Oh, like 20 quid.
Yeah, well, there we are.
Maybe more. Yeah.
I think way more.
Nah. I think it's like 22 pounds or something. But yeah, I mean, yeah. That's really cheap. £3.50. Bloody hell. They need to charge more than that. What are they thinking? £3.50? That's like a bus ticket.
Well, yeah.
That's a bloody tube journey.
Well, we don't know about how big the zoo is. It could just have plastic penguins in it and a reptile house. I think that I have some friends in Telford that I can ask.
Yeah?
Maybe a roving reporter.
That sounds good. Our man on the ground.
Yeah.
In Telford.
Or if one of our listeners is from Telford, perfect. You go and do it for us. Send in a little review.
Send in a review. Send in a picture of you with the penguin.
And we'll put you in the show notes.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. We'll talk about you in the show as well. Something that you alluded to earlier on. This is my favourite quote from Scott, the director of the zoo. He says, "We've already got contingency plans in place for the Christmas period. And we will dress up a member of staff in a penguin costume, so at least the children will have something to enjoy."
What?
So at least the children will have something to enjoy.
But are they just going to put him in the cage? Sorry, the enclosure.
Yeah, probably.
Just like a guy standing around dressed as a penguin.
Yeah, maybe. Maybe he'll be doing a few laps of the pool.
Yeah, Valley can't. It's not the right size for a human.
I don't know. No, well, emperor penguins are pretty big, and apparently these are life-size models.
Oh, okay. Okay, it's slightly bigger than I thought then.
Yeah, they're not Humboldts. So the Humboldt's tiny. How big's a Humboldt? Like 1 foot, 1.5 feet? Whereas an emperor penguin's like 4.
Of the whole enclosure. Oh, I've got it. It's hard to tell from perspective. We need our person from Telford before I can make a full judgment. I'm sorry.
Okay, so person from Telford, please go with a tape measure and get some dimensions of this pool for us.
If you're going to get a costume around Christmas for a creature that lives at the poles, most people would go Santa, not penguin.
Yeah.
I admire the fact that they're going a bit avant-garde with it.
Something for the children to enjoy. Oh dear, I'm being really cruel, to be honest. It's a terrible state of events for both the zoo and the penguin captive breeding program, and I guess by extension, the wild penguin populations themselves. So, sending all of our thoughts and prayers to Telford Zoo, Telford Exotic Zoo, as well as the international effort to rescue the Humboldt penguins.
Diddle-a-da.